Unlock the door to mystery with one very short story. The micro-podcast filled with morally complex characters, twists you won't predict, and endings you won't forget. Every episode is a brief, intense journey, perfect for listeners who crave mystery, intrigue, and stories that leave you thinking long after the tale ends. Today's episode begins now. The Penitent. Michael Delacroix pressed his back against the brick wall, feeling the cold seep through his jacket. 3 stories below, the woman walked alone down the alley, her heels clicking against wet pavement like a countdown timer. She'd been easy to track. The anonymous tip had led him to her. A manila envelope slipped under his apartment door 3 weeks ago, containing photos of Sarah Kellerman entering the Riverside Motel, credit card receipts, even a printed transcript of text messages between her and her yoga instructor. Someone had bypassed the building's security, probably through the maintenance entrance that never locked properly. Someone wanted him to know about her adultery. Someone always did. Sin had a smell. Michael could taste it in the air, metallic and sharp. He'd been watching her for weeks since receiving the tip, learning her patterns. Tuesday nights were for the affair. Thursday nights were for confession at St. Mary's, where she'd kneel and whisper her guilt to Father Mackey, then walk out feeling clean enough to do it all again. The hypocrisy burned in his chest. Michael slipped down the fire escape, his movements fluid despite his 53 years. His hands were steady. They'd been steady for 2 years now, ever since he'd started acting on the dreams. The visions had plagued him for 7 years. Scales and swords, justice flowing like water through a broken world. His therapist had called them stress-induced hallucinations, a manifestation of his guilt over his daughter's death. The drunk driver who'd killed Emma had walked free on a technicality. Michael's subconscious, Dr. Reeves explained, was creating elaborate fantasies of cosmic justice to cope with the injustice of reality. But 2 years ago, the dreams had stopped being enough. Michael had stopped seeing Dr. Reeves then, deciding that action was its own form of therapy. Why talk about justice when you could deliver it? Sarah stopped at her car, fumbling with her keys. The parking garage was empty except for the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant drip of a broken pipe. Perfect. Michael had learned to appreciate these isolated moments. The tips always led him to places where his work wouldn't be interrupted. And afterward, the cleanup crew would arrive within hours, erasing all traces of what had happened here. Sarah. She spun around, keys clattering to the concrete. Her face went white when she saw him step from the shadows. Not because she recognized him, she didn't. But something in her bones knew what he was. Please, she whispered. I have children. You should have thought of that before. Michael pulled the knife from his jacket. The blade caught the harsh light, throwing silver across the concrete walls. Before you broke your vows. Before you lied to your husband every night. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish drowning in air. Then something strange happened. Her fear melted away, replaced by something that looked almost like relief. You know, she said, I know everything. Sarah's shoulders sagged. She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, there was something different there. Acceptance. Peace, even. I've been waiting, she said. We all have. Michael hesitated. The knife felt heavier in his hand. Waiting for what? For you. For this. She gestured at the blade, at him, at the empty garage around them. For justice. The word hit him wrong. Justice was his word, his mission, not hers. You don't understand, Michael said. You're going to die for your sins. I know. Sarah smiled, and it was the saddest thing he'd ever seen. That's why I joined them. That's why we all did. Joined who? Instead of answering, she reached into her purse. Michael tensed, but she only pulled out a small card. White paper, black ink. She held it out to him with trembling fingers. The Penitent, she said. We've been waiting for someone like you. Someone who understands that some sins can only be washed away with blood. Michael stared at the card. Simple text. The Penitent. For those who seek true absolution. Below it, an address. You're insane. Maybe. Sarah's voice was calm now, almost dreamy. But I've been carrying this guilt for 3 years. Every night I lie next to my husband and feel it eating me alive. Every morning I look at my children and know I'm poison in their lives. The confession doesn't work. The prayers don't work. Nothing works except this. She stepped closer to the knife. Please, she whispered. Let me be clean. Michael's hand shook. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. His victims were supposed to beg for their lives, not their deaths. They were supposed to fight, to run, to prove their guilt through their desperation to live despite their sins. But Sarah just stood there, waiting. The knife slipped between her ribs like it was coming home. She gasped once, then smiled as the blood spread across her white blouse. Her eyes stayed open as she fell, staring up at him with something that looked like gratitude. Michael stood over her body, the knife dripping in his hand. The garage was silent except for his ragged breathing and the steady drip of that broken pipe somewhere in the darkness. He picked up the card, his mind racing. David Mackey, the embezzler. Hadn't he whispered something as he died? Thank you, Michael had thought at the time. He'd assumed it was delirium, and Jennifer Walsh, the hit-and-run driver. She'd stopped running when she saw him. Just stopped, like she'd been expecting him. Had they all been waiting? The address on the card Sarah gave him led him to a warehouse in the industrial district. No signs, no markings, just a steel door with a small slot at eye level. Michael knocked. The slot opened. Eyes peered out. Young, female, with the hollow look of someone who'd seen too much. Are you here for absolution? She asked. Michael held up the card. The slot closed. Locks turned, and the door swung open. Inside, the warehouse had been converted into something between a church and a therapy group. Folding chairs arranged in circles, candles burning on makeshift altars, and people, maybe 30 of them, all ages, all types. They sat in small groups, talking in hushed voices about their sins. First time? The girl who'd opened the door couldn't have been more than 20. Her arms were covered in scars, some old, some fresh. I'm Emma. I killed my baby sister when I was 12. Pushed her down the stairs because she broke my favorite doll. She said it like she was discussing the weather. I've been coming here for 2 years, Emma continued, waiting for someone like you, someone who could help me pay the price. Michael felt sick. You're all sinners, yes. A man approached them, older, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. He wore a priest's collar, but something about him felt wrong, broken. I'm Father Matthias. I used to run a parish in Ohio, until I started touching the altar boys. The casual admission hit Michael like a physical blow. We're all here for the same reason, Father Matthias said. We've done things that can't be forgiven. Not by God, not by society, not by ourselves. Traditional confession is a joke. Say 10 Hail Marys and pretend it never happened. But we know better. We know that some sins require blood. You're sick, Michael whispered. Are we? Father Matthias tilted his head. You've killed 7 people in the past 2 years. All sinners. All people who deserved to die for what they'd done. Tell me, Michael, how is what you do different from what we want? Michael's blood went cold. How do you know my name? We've been watching you, following you, learning your patterns. Father Matthias gestured to a corner where a man with a camera sat quietly. Thomas there used to be a private investigator before he started embezzling from his clients. He's very good at surveillance. More importantly, he has friends in the police department who help us redirect investigations when necessary. The warehouse felt like it was spinning around him. Michael gripped the knife in his jacket, but it felt useless now. Meaningless. You've been manipulating me. We've been helping you, Father Matthias corrected. We found you through your therapy records. Dr. Reeves keeps very detailed notes about your dreams, your guilt over Emma's death. We knew you were exactly what we needed. Every person you've killed came to us first. They confessed their sins, provided proof of what they'd done, accepted their fate, and we made sure you'd find them. The tips, the evidence, the perfect timing, that was us. We made sure you'd know what they'd done. Proof? Oh yes. We don't accept just anyone. Sarah brought us hotel receipts, photos, text messages. David Mackey provided bank records showing exactly how much he'd stolen. Jennifer Walsh had the dash cam footage from her hit and run. We require documentation, evidence. We're not running a fantasy camp for guilt-ridden liars. That's impossible. Is it? Think about it, Michael. How convenient were those anonymous tips? How perfectly did the evidence fall into place? Sarah's credit card receipts just happened to blow out of a dumpster near your apartment. David Mackey's embezzlement records were mysteriously leaked to that journalist who wrote the article you read. Jennifer Walsh's hit and run was captured on a security camera that just happened to malfunction right after you saw the footage. Michael thought about the patterns he'd missed, the way his victims never seemed surprised to see him, the way they'd all had that same look of resignation, of acceptance. He'd interpreted it as guilt, as the weight of their sins finally catching up to them. But it had been something else entirely. You used me, he said. We gave you purpose, Father Matthias corrected. You were already having the dreams, Michael, already feeling the need for justice. Dr. Reeves was right. They were manifestations of your guilt over Emma's death. But we helped you channel that need into something meaningful. We made sure you were killing the right people. People who wanted to die. People who deserved to die. I'm not your executioner. Aren't you? The priest's smile was sad and knowing. What do you think you've been for the past 2 years? What do you think you are now? Michael pulled out the knife. Several people in the warehouse turned to look, but none of them seemed afraid. If anything, they looked hopeful. You want me to kill you all, he said. We want you to give us what we deserve, Father Matthias said. What we've earned through our sins. True absolution. The kind that can only come through death. And if I refuse? then we'll find someone else. There are others like you, Michael. Others who understand that some people don't deserve to live. But we chose you because we could see it in your eyes. You're not a monster. You're an artist. You kill with purpose, with meaning. You make it beautiful. What about the police? 7 murders are being investigated as unrelated crimes, Father Matthias interrupted. Thomas's contacts in the department have been very helpful. A few well-placed tips about gang activity, drug deals gone wrong, domestic disputes. The authorities see what we want them to see. Your work stays clean, and afterward, our cleanup crews make sure there's no evidence left behind. We've had plenty of practice. Michael looked around the warehouse. How long have you been doing this? This location? Only 6 months. We move frequently. Warehouses, abandoned buildings, rented spaces, nothing permanent. We can't afford to stay in one place too long, even with police protection. Michael looked around the warehouse at all the faces staring back at him. Young and old, men and women, all united by their guilt and their desire for punishment. They weren't afraid of him. They were grateful to him. He thought about the dreams that had started this all, the visions of scales and swords, of justice flowing like water. Dr. Reeves had been right. They were his mind's way of processing Emma's death, of creating meaning from meaningless tragedy. But these people had taken that psychological wound and weaponized it. I need to think, he said. Of course. Father Matthias nodded. Take all the time you need. We'll be here when you're ready. We'll always be here. Michael walked toward the door, but Emma's voice stopped him. Michael. She held up her scarred arms. I've been cutting myself for 8 years, trying to pay for what I did, but it's never enough. It never balances the scales. Only you can do that. Only you can make it right. He left without answering. Michael sat in his apartment, staring at the wall where he'd pinned photos of his victims. 7 faces looked back at him. 7 sinners who deserved to die. Except now he knew they'd wanted to die. They'd orchestrated their own deaths and used him as the instrument. Was he still a killer if his victims were willing? Was he still dispensing justice if the guilty were punishing themselves? The knife lay on the table in front of him, its blade clean and sharp. He'd spent hours sharpening it, preparing for his next hunt. But who was he hunting now? Sinners who wanted to die out of guilt. Did it matter how they felt? Were they less deserving of death because of their regret? His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. There's a man named Thomas Brennan. He molested his nephew for 3 years. He's at Riverside Park right now feeding the ducks. Michael stared at the message. Another sinner. Another volunteer. Another person who'd confessed their guilt to Father Matthias, provided proof of their crimes, and gone out into the world to wait for death. He could ignore it. He could walk away from all of this, find a new city, start over. But the dreams would follow him. The visions of scales and swords. The need for justice that burned in his chest like acid. Not divine justice, but the desperate need of a broken father trying to make sense of a senseless world. Or he could go to the park. He could find Thomas Brennan and give him what he wanted. What they all wanted. Michael picked up the knife and tested its edge against his thumb. A thin line of blood welled up, bright red against his pale skin. Justice. The word had lost all meaning. He closed his eyes and tried to remember what it had felt like before. The certainty, the righteousness, the sense that he was cleaning the world one sinner at a time. But all he could see now were Sarah's grateful eyes and Emma's scarred arms and Father Matthias's knowing smile. They'd made him into something he'd never wanted to be. Not a killer, but a mercy. Not justice, but absolution. The phone buzzed again. Another message. He's waiting for you. We all are. Michael opened his eyes and looked at his reflection in the knife's blade. The face that stared back was older than he remembered, more weathered. The eyes were the same, though, dark and intense and full of something that might have been purpose once. He stood up and put on his jacket. Outside, it was starting to rain. Thanks for listening to one very short story. If today's story hooked you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us grow and keeps the suspense coming your way. Want to dive deeper? Check out the podcast description to learn more about the show and explore special offers from our sponsor. Until next time, keep dodging bullets and stay safe in the shadows.